Welcome to Unfuck Your Legal Marketing, the show where we get brutally honest about marketing, business, and the messy middle of making it all work. I'm Gary Johnson, marketing coach, strategist, and professional BS detector for attorneys and business owners who are tired of doing what everyone else does. Around here, we skip the fluff. We have real conversations, real insights, and maybe a few F-bombs along the way. So let's get into it. One of the biggest challenges lawyers have in business development and marketing is how to charge for their services. This can make or break a lawyer's income. And if they get this right, they can actually make more money and attract the right clients. And I'm so excited to have my friend and colleague, Alay Yajnik, as my guest today to share his valuable wisdom with how do you actually do this so that you can get more confidence in what you are actually charging. And Alay is a law firm growth expert who helps solo and small firm owners help them to build more profitable, sustainable practices, and here's the biggest kicker, take time off so that they can actually live life outside of work. He's the founder of Law Firm Success Group. He's the author of Staffing Up, the attorney's guide to hiring top talent, and he's the host of Lawyer Business Advantage podcast. Also, to add on to all of that, he's got an MBA and has over 17 years helping attorneys increase their income, improve systems, and build teams that work. Alay is really the expert when it comes to this. And I just want to say thank you so much, Alay, for spending your time on this podcast today. So welcome.
Thank you, Gary. I'm really excited to be doing this with you. I think the world of you, and I'm looking forward to jumping into it today.
Yeah, me too. So let's jump into it. First, why is pricing for legal services so challenging?
Well, it's actually not that challenging, but a lot of attorneys get wrapped up in their heads and make it really, really challenging. Yeah. On the surface level, it seems like it is challenging. I mean, if you price your services too high, no one's going to want to hire you. And if you price your services too low, you're not going to make any money. So you want to dial that in just right. And you're really, really worried, oh my God, if I'm priced the same as everybody else, they're going to choose all of those other people instead of choosing to work with me when, that's not necessarily true. But I think that's really what makes it hard. The stakes are high. There are significant issues if you don't get it right. And it's really, really easy not to get it right. But really, when you think about it, it's not as challenging as it may seem.
Why so?
Well, first of all, it's really easy to figure out what to charge for your services because, believe it or not, you should be charging usually about the same as what your competition is charging. And I'm not talking about your terrible competition, and I'm not talking about the competition that is like 8 times your size. But, really the people that are of a similar size firm, a similar level of expertise, people who you probably know that are in your community, charging about the same as what they do, maybe a little bit higher, a little bit lower, is really kind of where you want to be at. So could be as simple as having a conversation.
It's so true. That is really wise, because if you are trying to charge the same as, let's say, a big law firm, somebody like a partner at Kirkland, you do similar stuff, but they're in a very large firm that has a lot of reputation, a lot of cachet. You can't do that. Even if you're in a mid-sized firm, it's difficult to do that. And if you're coaching one of your clients and they were with a small firm, like their own firm.
Hypothetically,
and they are trying to find out how to, or what their competition charges. How do you recommend they find that?
Just ask. It's so funny because attorneys are a wonderful group of people to work with because they actually know their competition pretty well. They talk to their competition all the time. They refer business to their competition, which is not something you hear in most other professions.
Yeah.
And so who you're competing with, when you're meeting them at a bar association meeting or, over cocktails or even in the courtroom, ask them, hey, I'm launching my new practice or I'm evaluating my pricing for the year. Roughly, what do you guys charge? And see what they say. Or you can be really sneaky and call up their firm and just ask the receptionist, hey, I'm trying to get a sense for, the rates. What rates does your firm charge? And oftentimes the receptionist will give you a ballpark. Sometimes they'll even give you
Really?
the exact information. Yeah, sometimes.
Get out of here. I did not even know that. Like, that is sly.
It's
That's
a
a
little
really good way.
sneaky.
But you're not doing anything unethical, right? You're
Nope.
asking it. You know,
Nope.
as long as you're on the up and up, see no issue. I think that that's being strategic. I like that one. So, in your estimation, why do so many lawyers delay pricing changes, even though there is a demand for their services?
Yeah, most of the clients that we work with have already, they have their baseline pricing set. And one of the first questions that we ask when we're starting a new engagement is, when was the last time you raised your rates? For new clients, I understand there's challenges around raising rates for existing clients. That's a whole different deal. But for new clients, when was the last time you raised your rate? And Gary, I don't know what you see, but we do similar stuff, and oftentimes they don't raise their rate every year, right?
No. Yep.
And that's a challenge because the cost of doing business are going up every year. So if you're not raising your rate, but your costs are going up, it means you're making less money every single year. And if you don't raise your rate a little bit each year, at some point, because you're not making enough money, you're going to have to make a big rate increase. And that is really, really hard to execute. So little increases year over year is just good business practices. The other reason that they don't raise their rate is they're really worried. They really are worried that if they raise their rate, even by $25 an hour, they're not going to get any clients. Like, it's just like the pipeline of clients is going to turn off just like that. And of course, that is generally, I have never seen that happen. And I've been working with lawyers and law firms since 2013. Gary, what about you?
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I've
just
never seen that.
doesn't happen. Yeah, if you should raise your rate by $200 an hour, that's a different deal. But modest increases, totally fine.
How do you advise people to overcome that fear? Other than telling them, we've never seen it before, where it's like, oh, we raised it and oh my God, the guy's out of business. Like, it's never happened, yet it's a fear that they have. I think everybody has that fear, How do you help them over it? Like, is there something you say or show them? Or is it just the fact of, guys, like, stop, stop with that stupid thinking?
So we don't say that most of the time.
You're much nicer than I am.
Sometimes. So usually let's start with the hardest time to raise your rate. The hardest time to raise your rate is when you don't have a lot of clients. It is really hard to walk into a new year and say, my book of business is nowhere near full, and Alay, you're asking me to raise my rate. Like, let's solve the right problem here. My rate is not the issue. I need more clients. So usually we get into that conversation when they're full.
Yeah.
And when they're out of capacity and they're full and they're looking to hire, because that's also an expensive risk, we really have the conversation. Like, you do need to bring some people on board, but you also should think about raising your rate. And there's a lot of benefits actually that come with raising your rate. You can get rid of those clients that don't value your services and are probably being a real pain in your backside. We all have those clients. They tend to be very price sensitive. And so by bumping up your rate, it might just be the invitation that they need to go work with and terrorize another law firm.
Yes.
So that's one benefit. The other benefit is it feels good, right? It feels good to be earning more for your hour because it's a reflection of how you've grown in your craft. Because as attorneys, it is a craft, and you are much better now than you were when you just came out of law school, and you're going to get better and better every year. And so your rate should reflect that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, and especially that feeling inside that you're like, okay, I'm established. I'm now making X amount of money. It just feels good, as opposed to I'm at the bottom rung and I just charge that and I get crappy clients from that. And speaking of, how do you see pricing affecting the type of clients that an attorney attracts?
I think it could be a really powerful influence on that. And it has to do with your positioning as an attorney in your market. So if you are positioned at the cheapest end of the market, which maybe if you're starting a law firm, that's where you feel like you might start. It's really funny, but oftentimes those are some of the most challenging clients you could ever want to work with, regardless of what practice area you're in. They're going to be the people that are the most fee sensitive. They're most likely to argue your bill. They are, and this is a real challenge for litigation-based practices like family law and real estate litigation and so on and so forth. They only have so much money to go around. And so you may find that there's things you need to do or want to do in trial that you're not going to be able to do because they can't fund it, right? And that's incredibly frustrating as an attorney. So that's the low end of the scale. And then oftentimes they're also not able to or willing to take your advice. At the kind of the higher end of the scale, when you're pricing those, when you're at the top end of your profession, people know that they can hire someone less expensive, but they're hiring you. And they're hiring you because they want a really good attorney. So these are the people who, they tend to not argue the bill as much. They tend to listen to your advice. They know they have options, and they have picked you specifically because they want a high quality attorney.
So true. Good God. I mean, I always say that the best clients are the ones that pay the most amount of money. And it's not because I'm making more money, but it's because what you had just said, they respect you. They respect your advice. They're like, I'm paying you a lot of money, therefore I'm going to actually listen to your advice. As opposed to, yeah, my employment attorney told me I needed this. Yeah, we decided not to. And now we're in litigation. Now we're getting sued. And you just go, yeah, those are a pain in the ass clients. And I do think that there's definitely that correlation between the two. So I know you had mentioned they should raise rates when they're full, when they've got a lot of clients, or they're thinking about hiring. Are there any other times that they should consider to or feel like they are ready to raise their rates?
You haven't done it in a while. It's a really good thing. Like if you've gone over a year and a half and you haven't raised your rates, you should. Because like we talked about, the cost of doing business goes up every single year, and your rate should too. The other time to raise your rate is if something changes in your firm. So if you get acquired by another firm, or if you are promoted, let's say you make partner or what have you, or get some kind of special recognition, like you become a certified specialist. Those are all reasons when cool things happen to you professionally, it's a great reason to raise your rate. And as I think we talked about too, once you start bringing people on board, boy, when you bring on that first attorney, whether, that first associate attorney, boom, bump your rate up.
Yeah, like immediately. And hopefully they've already done it before that, because in order to make that decision, they have to have enough to feed that other attorney that they're bringing on. So hopefully they will have already increased their rates. Do you have any good stories of when someone waited too long to raise their rates and it costing them in some way or another?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the lost revenue, but beyond that, this goes back to something we talked about earlier, which was keeping your rates low and the kind of client you attract. Now, I remember working with an attorney, solo attorney. I was actually surprised he reached out to me because this guy had a phenomenal reputation in the community, and he was a senior attorney, getting close to retirement. And so I was shocked when he reached out and said, hey, I really want to chat with you about a couple things. And so we ended up, one thing led to another, and we ended up working together. He wanted to basically earn a bunch of money in the last 2 or 3 years of his practice, and he wanted to retire, and he had this house in Oakland up on the hill that he wanted to retire to. But he had to earn some money before he could do that. And in our conversations, he hadn't raised his rate in a long time. And there were a lot of clients that were just making him miserable. Like, he hated his practice. There was probably 30% of his clients that he absolutely hated. And the problem is that 30% was impacting his ability to be a good attorney for the other 70% of the clients he liked. And it was really hampering his business development efforts because his energy was just so low and so down that he wasn't able to effectively market his practice. And so the first thing we did is asked him, hey, when was the last time you raised your rate? And he hadn't raised it in, like, I don't know, 5-6 years, some incredible amount of time.
God.
Yeah, it was really bad. So what we did, and this is something that's hard to do, but we strategically decided to do this, we bumped it a lot. I think we jumped up like $100 for existing clients.
Whoa.
And the clients he loved, He was a solo, so he didn't have that many clients.
Yep.
The clients he loved, he had conversations with them before the rate increase went into effect. He explained to them, here's why I'm doing it. If some clients had heartburn, I don't think any of them did, but if they had heartburn, we talked about how he would then not give them a full raise. So we managed the clients he wanted to keep. The clients that made him miserable, we just sent them a letter. And most of those clients tapped out right away. And what was crazy about this, Gary, within 6 months, I kid you not, his book of business was full. He was so happy. And like in a couple years later, he wound up retiring and, moving to that house in the Oakland Hills.
Yeah.
It's just, and this was a long time ago, but the story stuck with me because that small of a thing had that big of an, had that.
Yeah, I'm going to do a very shameless plug right now. This is the reason why people need to use your services, because when you have a third party who is not emotionally into the thing, that can look at things objectively, they can see these little things and say, if you make this decision, this is what's going to happen, and this is from your experience. But it also gives them the courage to actually do it, right? Because he didn't have the courage to do it for 5-6 years. He hires you. One of the first things you do is, let's do this. Changes dramatically, whether it's pricing change or it's other, like, hey, help me with my marketing, help me with my hiring, help me with all the stuff that you help attorneys to do. But that's a huge win. I mean, an enormous win. And that fast too. It's all possible as long as you execute on it. And I always say that the biggest thing with fear is, or the biggest thing with pricing that holds people back is just that fear, like we were talking about. And sometimes you need a coach like you that says, hey, you got to fucking do this shit. And like, come on, let's do it. Like, I'm going to be there walking, like, have confidence in doing this, because then it gives them the, okay. And sometimes I'm sure you probably have had people go, boy, if this doesn't work, Alay, like your head is going to be on a stake, and you're like, bring it on. So on the flip side, I know he got the thing, but what do you see changes in firms that are dramatic when they start to increase it, on a fairly regular basis? What sort of positive changes do you typically see besides the obvious of I'm going to make more money?
Yeah. And I think we mentioned this earlier too. It's the level of confidence and maybe to a lesser extent job satisfaction, but certainly the level of confidence that the attorney has, because they feel like, yeah, my services are appreciated and I'm going to charge more for them every year. And you know what? And this is the cool part. When you do that, you're worried clients are going to leave you. Clients don't leave. And that feels amazing. You're like, I raised your rate and you're still here. Awesome. And occasionally you'll get a cheeky response from a client like, I was wondering when you were going to do that, or
oh, God,
something like that.
It's about time.
It's about time, yeah.
That. You're like, what?
But it feels amazing when you can raise your rate and your client is just fine. They're okay with it and they keep rolling with you. It makes you feel so good as a person, because we're all kind of dealing, well, not all of us. You're not, Gary, but the rest of us are dealing with this imposter syndrome thing. I'm not worth $500 an hour, and I'm not worth $800 an hour, or I'm not worth $350, whatever it is. We're always worried that we're just not worth it. And a rate increase is a very clear way of putting yourself out there to say, am I worth it or not? And so when you retain all of your clients, now you feel worth it,
Big time. Yeah.
And that can happen, with your first rate increase. It can happen when you get up to a threshold, like, I'm going to cross that $400 to $500 an hour threshold. I don't know if I'm worth it, and they do that. They go up to like 525 or 505 or whatever makes them comfortable, and everything's fine. That's a tremendous amount of validation, which reflects in their work.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember one of my clients, when we raised her rates, she was a partner in a firm, and the managing partner called me up to yell at me because she was now charging the most amount at that firm. And 4 months later, she became a named partner, and he was doing it tongue in cheek, but he's like, you son of a bitch. I used to be the biggest rainmaker here, and da 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 da. I'm like, you make money off of her, don't you? Like, as her partner, like, he's like, that's irregardless. This is all my ego talking. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. Like, are you saying, I'm like, should I say, you're welcome? Like, are you thanking me? And he's like, no, I don't, because I want to be the grand poobah. But for her, it changed. And we implemented what you had said. Get full. Instead of, I can't work on that, raise it. And then when you see people are like, yeah, they don't even bat an eye, it adds that confidence to do it again and again and again. And so when you're doing this and you're working with people, do you ever have people that say, well, what about if they said, well, so-and-so is charging X amount of dollars, like your competitor is charging, $500 and you're $650. What do you say to that when they give you that objection, that they're getting that objection?
Well, it's easy to dismiss that with a joke because there were several going through my head. I actually don't get that very often. Because I think because I'm usually working with smaller law firms. And so a lot of times the peers are with larger firms, which are charging more money. But, if I was to get that, first off, we're talking about a small jump. So if they were, $25 less, let's say, it's not really that big of a deal. There's a lot of intangibles that go into selecting a law firm. There's a lot of tangibles too. But price, believe it or not, is not actually the biggest reason why people select a law firm. If it is, that's going to be a problematic client. Yeah. People choose a law firm for a lot of reasons. The number one reason is, can you help me solve my problem?
Right.
Everything else is really secondary. And a lot of it comes in, and that drives, they have to trust you. So that rapport has to be there. You have to have a certain level of credibility that says to them, yeah, this person knows what they're doing. That box is checked. And so there's a lot of other things that have to happen before price. And so if you're significantly higher than people you consider your competition, two things I would maybe reflect on is, number one, maybe they're not actually your competition. Maybe your competition is the people that are at your price or are maybe even priced higher than you. The other thing you should think about is clients choose you for a specific set of reasons. And once you understand what those reasons are, you can really embed that in your marketing and probably do another rate increase, because those other reasons are going to be way more important than price.
Yeah. And for all the listeners, like, to digest that, you have full control over your narrative, i.e. your marketing. And if you want to attract the higher end clients, you have to speak to those people so that you can charge more for that. It's not like it's just going to happen. But I think that marketing has so much to do with how much you're charging, because if they see the value and the benefits of working with you, then it's just, yeah, okay. It's a no-brainer, especially if they are referred into you. Why? And that's another reason why referrals are so important, because they're not shopping all over the place for the cheapest. They want the best quality, and they automatically trust you because that other person who referred you in trusts you. So it just takes pricing a lot out of this whole equation. Do you have any clients that are moving over to or have moved over to the flat fee arrangement to charge people?
From hourly to flat fee?
Yep.
Yeah, I've had some clients over the years that have done that. And then of course we work with a lot of hourly, and we're actually seeing it going more in the other direction, where flat fee clients are now doing a hybrid model. Well, they'll do a certain level of services for a flat fee, and then the other services will be hourly. We're seeing a lot more playing around with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see a difference between litigation and transactional work in regards to how they are charging and how much?
Oh, sure. So, litigation tends to be hourly, more contingency, and transactional work. You see a lot more of the flat fees are going to be there. Yeah.
It's always a challenge when somebody says, how much is this going to cost in a litigation aspect? Because they're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what opposing counsel is going to do, what they're going to show, whether they're going to want to settle quickly or they're going to want to drag it out. There's just too many intangibles to that, right? And that also becomes a challenge as well. Have you ever had anybody who raised their rates too much and then was like, holy cow, I overdid it. I was a little overzealous. I should pull this sucker back down?
I think so. Have you?
I have.
You
I
have?
have.
Yeah.
I mean, they
don't
went
think I have.
really aggressive where it was like a 50% increase. And they were like, well, so-and-so did this, and they were just losing business left and right. People are like, wait, what? Huh? That makes no sense.
Yeah, reality check.
Right. Because I think that also has something to do with it, right? In regards to what is the market going to bear? And that goes back to what you were saying before, where you look at what your competition is doing, but it's really the competition who is working with the same types of clients you are working at, which is what you had said earlier, which is, do they have lower end clients or are they that upper end clients, and vice versa, so that if you're dealing with lower end clients and you want to deal with that, and there's nothing wrong with that, more of a high volume play, well, you have to price accordingly, right, to that. And that also becomes this comparison. This person is doing this person is doing that, which I hate comparison. But when it comes to pricing, I'm like, let your ego get the best out of you. As opposed to all those vanity things. I didn't get as many comments or likes on my post. Like, I must be a piece of crap. And you're like, yeah, no, it's not how that works. But pricing, yeah, that does how it works.
It's so frustrating because we think that, we set our prices, but that's actually not true. Our pricing is set by our competition because there's a lot more of them than you are. Sorry. And so they end up dictating the rates that you can charge.
Yeah, it's so true. God, it's so true. What would you say if somebody is looking at increasing their prices? How soon should they really start to see an impact, either up or down, from either potential clients or current clients?
So current clients, you'll find out, when you send out the rate increase letter. If you get a ton of feedback, it probably wasn't done right or it wasn't executed appropriately. As far as new clients, hopefully you are not going to see any change. You'll continue to retain clients at the same rate that you always have. That, of course, assumes that you know what your close rate is, what your client conversion rate is, whatever you want to call it, a percentage of potential clients and consults that convert and sign your fee agreement. If that's, let's say it's 75%, it should continue to be about 75%. That's what we're looking for. I haven't seen it where you do a rate increase and then it goes up from 75% to 95% without doing anything else. I also really haven't seen it go down unless I have seen it in a couple of cases where the attorney's confidence is affected. So they were really comfortable selling their services at, I'll pick a random rate here, $300 an hour. Or actually, let's flip that. So because this is not just an hourly rate thing, to your point, let's talk about flat fees. Let's talk about an estate planning attorney who's charging, $4,000 for a simple estate plan for a couple, right? And they're comfortable doing that. That's in their strike zone. They've been doing that for a long time, super comfortable. Now they're charging $4,500. And that gets into their head and it starts to affect their confidence. And so they may trip and stumble a little bit and you'll see that conversion rate drop. Then we jump in, we have a conversation, get that addressed, and boom, they get right back to where they were doing before.
Yeah. Have you ever had anybody that you're not working with do a rate increase and then quickly go right back to it? Go back to the original. Like, oh my God, I had 2 people say no. I just need to go back to my whatever it was, $4,000.
Yeah, I've had clients do that.
Yeah.
Where they for like new clients, they will, we'll have a coaching session and they'll say, yeah, okay, I agree to raise my rate. And then we get together 2 weeks later and they say, actually, I felt uncomfortable, so I went back to my old rate. So then we have a conversation. No! This stuff is hard, right? There's a lot that's going on up here that drives that behavior. We talked about imposter syndrome. We talked about fear. These are powerful emotions. And so, we work with them and we get it sorted out and address those things and get them back to, being able to charge what they want to charge for their services, not what they feel comfortable doing.
God, that is so brilliant too. It's what they should charge as opposed to what they're comfortable with, because they have to get out of their comfort zone in order to grow, right? So If anybody is listening that is like, God, but it's going to be so uncomfortable. Yeah, it is. And it's okay. It's like anything. You working out, what happens? You get very sore. But that soreness starts to dissipate as you continue to do that. And I also think that consistency is such an important element too, to be consistent with that. That helps this, right?
Yeah, it really does. And that's why, if they hire someone like you or someone like me, that's where we really help.
Yeah.
We can get them out of their comfort zone, and we do it in a way that is safe, relatively safe for them to do. It's not as hard. It's much harder to do it if there's no one there to talk to, no one there to walk you through it, no one there who's been through it before.
Yeah, totally true. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you, Alay. This has been enormously valuable. I mean, it's been valuable for me. I always love learning from others. And, you and I do very similar things. And it is just, it's phenomenal because, look, if you want to raise your rates, do it small, do it incrementally, like what Alay was saying. Do it when you start feeling like you're full, when you really want to grow, when you haven't done it in a very long time, and do it with respect for your clients, but also respect for your attorneys that are under you and for yourself, for your life, because we want to be able to have this life where we can spend it outside of the office and enjoy it. Well, the way you do that is by bringing in more income, bringing in more profit, so that you can take those nice trips, and do the things that you want to do with your family, friends, network, the whole 9 yards. So, Alay, thank you. Thank you for spending the time.
Thanks for having me on, Gary.
That's it for today's episode of Unfuck Your Legal Marketing. If you got a spark of inspiration, learned something new, or at least got a good laugh, make sure to follow, rate, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for hanging out with me, and remember, the best marketing is the one that actually sounds like you. See you next time.